Good afternoon, biology. Welcome to your first video lesson of the year. This is chapter 1, the science of biology. And this is the chapter I told you guys is kind of something you cover every year. It's something we try to breeze through pretty quick, but we just got to make sure everyone's on the same page. So we'll cover the information today. You'll take a little quiz, and then next week, when I'm back, we can do some reviewing and make sure everybody understands it. I think you will. First of all, what is science? I'm a science teacher, so we might want to ask that sometimes. Make sure kids know, what does science actually mean besides a class they're in? And here's what science is defined as. It's an organized way of gathering and analyzing evidence about the natural world. Okay. So as was mentioned in the Ed puzzle, it's very similar to how we think every day. They referenced finding your cell phone after searching for it in your clothes, and then also finally figuring out it's in your backpack. And we do things like that all the time, and that's really what science does too. It's a very similar process. The goals of science are to provide three things: to provide a natural explanation, understand patterns, and make predictions. Okay, and a good thing that comes to mind is weather forecasting. Okay, we try for the safety of people to predict the weather. And the way we do that is using weather models, patterns, studying those things and trying to understand how everything works. And it's not always perfect because nature doesn't do what we want it to do. It can change just like science. All right, scientific method. I know you already watched a video on that, and that's great. Just pause the video here and take a minute and try to define these vocab words in your head. So pause the video now. I'm still here. Trying to trick you and think the video is paused. Okay, so now that you've paused the video and thought of these, some definitions. Okay, and see how close you were here. If you explain the meaning correctly and you didn't have the exact wording, that's fine. Okay, but observations, that's something you've learned all these last year in ninth grade physical science. We've talked about that and who you had for teachers, and just think back to what they taught you. And if they worded it a way that helps you, use that. Observation, noticing or describing events or processes. And we typically are going to use our sense of sight for that, but we can use all our senses. We can feel things. You can smell, taste, hear. Depends on the safety of it, of course, what you use. An inference is a interpretation based on what you already know. So not a direct observation, but maybe there's clues and some things that you've experienced in your life, and you see those same clues, and you can infer or kind of get a really good guess as to what's going on without actually seeing it. Hypothesis, educated guess. I know that's the way I learned it growing up. We kind of keep things consistent, so teachers say educated guess. It must be testable. Got to be able to test it. That gives us our experiment, right? So a controlled experiment, we change one variable at a time. A lot of times kids think controlled means it's safe. We always try to make sure experiments are safe, but changing one thing at a time. Keep everything else the same so you know what is causing the changes or the goal, like the goal outcome. Okay, we want to know what causes that. Variables are anything that changes. So we have two kinds, independent and dependent. Independent, if you just remember, it starts with the letter I. This is what I change. Okay, so if I alter the amount of flour in my cookies, I'm expecting something to change because of that, right? What changes is called the dependent. So maybe I find the cookies are more fluffy or darker in color or something. That would be a dependent variable, something I noticed. Usually you measure that or you take note of that. A control group is a normal group, something we use to compare, to make sure that what we're changing is really what's making everything else change. Data is anything we gather as information. Could be numbers. If it's numbers, that's called quantitative. Quantity. So 12 centimeters is quantity. A temperature reading is quantity. But if I describe color or luster or shape or something like that, that's called qualitative. It's a quality rather than a quantity. And a conclusion, this backs up our hypothesis, and sometimes it doesn't. And that's okay. Then we go back through the process. All right, a couple of scientists here. If actually, you know what? I'm gonna see if you guys can identify. I know you can identify at least half of these guys. Okay, four scientists, three or one current and three from farther back. But scientists are always curious, skeptical, open-minded, and creative, and it's all of that that helps them to do what they do. And honestly, if you look at that, that's how we describe ourselves too in cases, right? We're curious about stuff. We're skeptical about stuff sometimes. Hopefully, we can be open-minded and creative. We all have a creative outlet, and so scientists think very similar to what we do. It's just the focus of that thinking. All right, what is a theory? Theory is a well-tested explanation that connects a wide range of observations and hypotheses. So, an example is the theory of evolution by natural selection, and that's Charles Darwin here, and he's the guy that came up with that theory. And sometimes theories may become dominant. And in the world of science, this seems to be, at least um, recently, the most dominant theory. Science is always changing. There could be other theories out there, and maybe they aren't the most dominant, but if we learn new things, maybe they do become dominant. And this guy here has a completely different theory on evolution. So this might be kind of uh, uh, maybe not quite full science here. Okay, disclaimer. But if you can tell me who that guy is, um, anyway, it'd be awesome if you knew. Okay, so if you know who that guy is, tell me in class, and I'll we can laugh about it. All right, if biology means to study of life, what does it mean to be alive? Here's some answers I've had kids say over the past years. Growing, moving, heartbeat, reacts, has a brain, breathes. And we know some living things don't do some of those things. And so, what does it mean to be alive? Biologically, here's what it is. And I didn't number it. I used to, but then I saw the Ed puzzle and they didn't number it. And so I thought, that makes sense why they don't. But here's what something to be considered alive needs to have these things true. So we need to have DNA, must be something that can grow and develop, must be something that can respond to the environment, must have the capability of reproducing, must maintain stable internal levels. We call that homeostasis. Obtains or uses energy and materials. That's called your metabolism. Must be made of cells and must evolve or change over time. Now, where this can get tricky is some living things or some things that we think maybe we're living maybe don't do all of these things. Okay, I've been hearing a lot about viruses with everything going on in the world, and a virus does some of these things like reproduce. Um, there's a DNA component, but they are not made of cells, and so some things in biology that are sometimes hard to classify. Okay, we think science should always be exact and stuff, and sometimes it's not always exact if we're still learning. Take the chapter 1 quiz. Have a great weekend, and I will see you at the end of next week. I'm looking forward to getting back to class. Being at home here is, I don't know, I need a change of scenery. So, all right, Take care and thank you.